Today we had our 2016 Cable Annual Meeting and Conference today, where we have all of our membership from across the state, along with the dignitaries, the governor, business leaders, Speaker of the House, Commissioner of Administration, where we kind of did the year in review of what cable was all about, and we got to hear the governor give his State of the State address, all the issues with our state, with our budget issues, the flooding issues, the shooting issues, and all that we had to work on throughout 2016.
We're going to talk about the year that we just went through and the challenges that we've been faced with and the challenges that we're going to have next year. And I'll lay out some of my vision for how we move forward, stabilize our state, and just have the future we all want for our children. And I'm excited about many of the things we've been able to accomplish this year, but I'm also fully aware of the challenges that we have yet to fully meet. And so we're going to work with the legislature, with the business community, the higher education community, everybody in Louisiana, to come together and make sure that we are making decisions in their best interest as we continue to have, for example, budget problems, as we need to tackle long-term comprehensive tax reform, as we continue to recover from the devastating and historic floods from March and August, and continue to bring our communities together after the Alton Sterling shooting and shooting the 6 police officers. So we all have a role to play. So this is my second visit. I was here at this time last year as governor-elect, and so this is really what happened over that first year and what I see coming down the road.
Cable is a statewide nonprofit organization that works on public policy issues at the state level. I mean, we're involved in a number of issues, but primarily over the years we've had a big focus on education, workforce development, kind of parts of economic development, and also tax policy. So those are big issues in our state, and with the tax policy, it's about to be another really big issue coming up next year.
It started in 1962 and it's grown now. We've been in existence 54 years now. And we educate the citizens of our state. We have leadership classes across the state. We've got former governors that were members of cable, business leaders, CEOs, educators, and so our sole focus is to make Louisiana a better place.
We work to advocate for policy, so we work to try and bring people together, come up with good ideas, kind of looking for what's the broad best interest of the state, not like a special interest or a single interest, but trying to look at what seems to be the best policy for the state and work with others at the legislature and in other places too to advocate for those policies.
We are not affiliated to one specific group, not one business group, one trade group, one party. We're completely open, nonpartisan, nonprofit. We do not endorse candidates, we endorse issues. So we don't pick personalities, we pick the issues to get behind, and then we work with all the people involved, the governor on down, to get those issues resolved. There's no other entity like that in Louisiana, and we're a true voluntary organization with a volunteer board, with a small staff, but with a great president in Barry Irwin. We put on statewide debates for offices such as the Senate recently, the governor's office, debates with that. We promote fact books about issues in the state, concerns of the state. We lobby issues at the state capitol for education, for workforce development, child care. We also get involved with the school issues with the charter school program, the recovery school districts. We get involved with educating the public on evaluating schools, teacher tenure, grading, things like that to make our state better, Common Core issues, healthcare issues, educating our citizens through our Leadership Louisiana program, where we have over 1,200 alums that we identify the problems in our state and how do we come up with answers for that. So as you can see, we have a lot of things that brings benefit to being a member of cable, and it's been around since the 60s. We're here to stay.
It's a diverse group of people that belong to cable. We've got a lot of individuals. There are companies, corporations. We get funding from private foundations. We don't get any public dollars or any state dollars or anything like that. But it's mostly people who really care about the state and like to see policies that they believe would move the state forward. I think the best benefit that we really have to offer is better government. our name, I guess, sort of says it all, Council for a Better Louisiana. So what we work for is to improve things in our state. And I think there are a lot of individuals as well as businesses that know they can't spend all their time at the legislature or doing all kinds of different things with candidates or individuals. But I think by making a contribution to cable, I think it gives them some peace of mind to know that there's an organization there that's really not a special interest, but kind of a broad public interest working for the common good.
Well, as you know, our company is expanding rapidly, and we've made a commitment to add 800 new jobs in Monroe. And part of that is recruitment and retention from all over the world. And one thing that cable has done that really has helped us is improve the perception of education in our state. And for people who are relocating here from another country or even another state, and they're moving their family here, they're very interested in the education climate. And so whether it's the education or the business climate or whatever else cable works on, their ability to elevate those topics as priorities for the state has really helped the perception of the state and helps us with our recruitment and the retention of new employees. I believe it's been probably over 10 years, and I'm new to the board and have really enjoyed the affiliation and working with all the other members. And the good thing about the board, they're from all over the state, some of us from North Louisiana, South or Central. So it's really been a good mix to talk to other business leaders and find out that their priorities are very similar to ours. You kind of get out what you put in, and so organizations like this don't run free, and there's a cost for everything they do. And the more support they have, whether it be just the business affiliation itself or the dues or funds that the organization puts in, help to fund other and more aggressive projects, and also just allows the organization to be more viable and effective.
It's so simple for me, and at the end of the day, it just says it, the name, Council for a Better Louisiana.
When you think of cable, I think what comes to mind immediately is independence, focus, dedication, honesty, integrity, and always striving to discover what is the best solution for the many problems that we experience in Louisiana.
The reputation of cable is impeccable, which has been that way since the 60s. And so they automatically know we don't have any personal agenda other than the betterment of the state.
Cable's role in education has been essential, and cable has provided that role, and it's been a consistent role in terms of going forward, both in establishing what the goals are, but more importantly, achieving those goals, and frequently it's legislatively.
When you look at the educational reform that's taken place over the course of the past couple of decades, it's been slow, but it's been steady. And cable has always been there pushing to kind of get us to the next level. And I think that's one of the most important roles cable has played is in the education front.
Community college, and then accountability, and then the New Orleans Recovery District. Cable is into every part of education and collaboratively works with people. And I've just seen such a success.
Leadership Louisiana is one of the secret weapons that we have at cable.
To me, it is the best program that anybody in this state could ever go through to learn more about this state, period.
Over the past almost 30 years, we've had over 1,100 folks come through from all over the state, and they get an opportunity to meet their friends or neighbors from around the state, people they would not have known otherwise, and to get perspectives that they would not have appreciated otherwise.
Leadership just offers that opportunity to really talk to people, to mingle with people, to broaden your view on Louisiana.
We come out feeling like superheroes. You're supercharged. Like, I'm going back to my community and I'm going to apply what I've learned. I'm going to use and tap into the relationships I've established. Something magical really does happen.
I think the common bond was people wanting to make our state better and wanting to use our energy and our experiences and our passion to really, really continue to do things to make Louisiana a great state for everybody.
When they tell you, as a result of Leadership Louisiana, that you will have friends for a lifetime and you will develop relationships that will impact your career and personal life for a lifetime, it is very true.
It's widely known that the class of '91 was the premier class for Leadership Louisiana.
I mean, 2016 is the best class ever. That's not even a question.
There's only one best class ever, and that was 2015, so there's no talk about it. I mean, we're just it.
The best class, people like to feud and banter about that, about their class being the best. I think every class is the best, no doubt about it.
Back then, Cable still has the stamp of approval that it has today as being a good government organization that's nonpartisan, looking at what's great for the state of Louisiana. Has always had a lot of weight when it comes to the table in the legislative setting to say this is something good for Louisiana, something you need to think about.
What Cable does is really about the people of Louisiana. I have not found one person who would disagree with education is important, a business climate is important, attracting world-class businesses and world-class talent to Louisiana is important, having a culture of ethics and credibility is important. So for an organization to invest in Cable, I think aligns them with something that's super positive that will have dividends paid off in a number of years ahead.
We have wonderful elected officials in this state, but oftentimes partisan ideals send people to their respective corners. And I think the role that Cable serves is bringing people together, saying, let's keep our eye on the prize, which is a better Louisiana.
Get involved with Cable, become a member, get on the board, run for office, do things. And when you look back on your life and your career, you're going to have something to smile about. And Cable is here to stay. We've been here since the 60s, and we're going to be here for a long, long time. One year ago, roughly, we invited Governor, at that point, elect Edwards, to come speak to us. He was mere weeks into his new position, and understand this was now December 2015. At the time, he may have thought it was going to be an easy year. Maybe a little structured, maybe a little normal, maybe a little uneventful. Things looked pretty solid other than some budget issues. And so things didn't look to be too turbulent. We all were wrong. We all were wrong. Who could have seen this? What we knew somewhat was the budget issues, the budget concerns that he would have to tackle. We kind of knew that. And then we get hit, our state gets hit north and south with devastating flooding that we're still fighting. We're still dealing with. Tough enough. Then we have to address the issues with the various shooting issues, police issues, various other issues related to that across the state, mainly in the Baton Rouge area. However, it continues, most recently in New Orleans. No one saw that coming. No one saw that we would need not only one special session, but two on top of the regular. No one saw that coming. Needless to say that 2016 was a year that no one could have imagined, could have thought about, coming about. There was no indications of such other than maybe some budget concerns that are now continuing. What I can tell you is that me personally, on behalf of Cable, we have watched and worked with Governor Edwards, who has worked in a tireless manner. He's never raised a white flag and said, I'm tired, I can't go anymore. He has been just impeccable with his dedication to finding solutions and continue to do so. We thought it simply would be compelling, and you would want to hear Governor Edwards to give us a state of the state address of, from his view, his insight, what it took to keep your head up and to work on the issues and to solve the issues and continue to do so from 2016 forward. Personally, he's done a yeoman's job, and we welcome you back, Governor Edwards, for giving us a state of the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all of you. I want to thank all the folks at Cable, everybody present today, and Barry, especially you and your leadership for this organization. And Trent, it has not been a year. In 3 days, it'll be 11 months since I've been governor. But I'm really not counting all that. And it has been a challenging but very rewarding year. And I want to tell you that I stand before you someone who's very proud and humbled to be the governor of the great state of Louisiana. And I do want to talk a little bit about the challenges that we've had this year and how we go forward, at least as best I see us going forward. And I always give you an opportunity to weigh in with us and understand that my administration, we are going to listen. We're going to bend over backwards to make sure that we receive input from folks across the state, whether it's the business community, higher education, you name it, because we do have some significant challenges. And the only way we're going to stabilize our state and move forward is if we come together, quite frankly, to a greater degree than we have. And so I'm committed to that, and I would ask that you join us in that effort. This is, well, before I get to the year, I want to tell you, Trent, given the Christmas list that you read out, I hope that your law firm, while they might forgive the billable hours, they go ahead and give you that Christmas bonus. Because I was a lawyer this time last year, and that bonus was there. Jay tells me there's not one in the budget this year. So this has been quite a year for our state, and I want to talk about where we are and what we need to do going forward. And quite frankly, I wish that I had better news. And I do have some good news. And before I start, I want to tell you, I've never been more optimistic about the future of our great state than I am right now. But only because I know we're going to roll up our sleeves, come together, and do the people's business. At this time last year, as Trent alluded, we didn't know that we had $1 billion shortfall just to close out the year that ended June 30th, to be followed by a $2 billion shortfall for the fiscal year that we are currently in. Those are really big numbers. That $2 billion, that's 20% of our state general fund. There's nothing easy about that. And for those of you who, because I get asked this question, well, how did that happen? If you look at the $2 billion, and there's a few other little things in there, the fact of the matter is the budget for last year had $800 million of one-time money, the most ever. There was not an increase for Medicaid utilization for the first time since the Medicaid program came into existence, even though I suspect everybody knew that there would be an increased cost associated with that. And the budget only accounted for 11 payments to Medicaid vendors, leaving us with the task of trying to pay for 13 in our first year. And then, of course, you had the price of oil that nosedived on us and counted for some part of that. But you add all that up, and that comes up to right at $2 billion. So that's how it happened. And quite frankly, it happened because of years of fiscal irresponsibility. And we knew that righting the ship was going to be a long and painful process, but we also knew that it would start and could only start with an honest conversation about where we were. And I'm so proud of the work that Commissioner of Administration Jay Darden has done, because you know, even if we might disagree about different things, the budget that he and I presented to the legislature was the most honest budget that I know that I have seen since I've been in Baton Rouge in almost a decade. There was no one-time money put against recurring expenditures. We didn't have contingent budgeting where we were appropriating money that we didn't really have. We didn't raid the Transportation Trust Fund to pay for unrelated things. Now, yes, there were an awful lot of things that didn't get funded in that budget proposal. But if you don't start off with an honest discussion, you're never going to find a way to fix things and to have perhaps honest disagreements. But behind honest disagreements, at some point, had better come a genuine compromise. And we had some of that, but we didn't have enough. And we're committed to doing even better as we go forward. And just recently, the REC met, And we closed last year's books $313 million in the red. Now that gets paid first this year. That means we have a $313 million shortfall this year. Next week, REC is going to meet, and they're going to say that we are somewhere between $300 and $500 million short for the current fiscal year. Now, both years, the shortfall relates to revenue, not coming in as projected. Now, in the current year, we also have an expenditure issue related to the flood response and recovery efforts of about $50 million that wasn't budgeted, but that's to be expected when you have unprecedented historic flooding of the type that we had this year, and we're going to discuss that more later. So it's critical that we follow through the work that has already started, which is going to require us to enact long-term structural tax reform. We need a tax structure that is fair, that is predictable, that is stable, and yes, that is sufficient. We don't have it today. And as I talk to people all across the state, and I do it often, everybody is in favor of fair taxation. But then too many define fair as that tax somebody else pays. It doesn't work that way. And I know I said this last year when I was here with you. We are going to have some shared sacrifice if we're going to have shared prosperity. And yeah, we can focus on the revenue. I would much rather be the governor of Louisiana here telling you how we had too much revenue coming in and we're about to do huge tax cuts. But that's not the reality of the situation. And we can only focus on the revenue if we want to, but the fact of the matter is, I've cut over $550 million out of the budget since I've been governor. We have proposed $313 million more in cuts to address last year's shortfall. And pretty soon we're going to be working on an answer to that $300 to $500 million shortfall. So we have tried to take a balanced, responsible approach to the situation. In fact, that's what we have done. But obviously we have a lot of work to do. And that's where you can help. The leadership in this room comes from all over the state. And you represent different sectors of our economy, different businesses. You have different ideas. We need your help. I need your help. This $300 to $500 million shortfall that we have for the current fiscal year, we need to address very soon. Because every month you delay, you then have to make those cuts and spread them across fewer months, and that has a much more damaging impact on the institutions, on the agencies, and on the people that are being served. And we cannot continue to wait and pray that things get better. Now, I do encourage you to pray things get better, but that can't be all that we do. We have to take action. So this drives home a very important point. We need your help to move Louisiana forward. We want to strengthen the tax code and our revenue structure so that we can properly fund the services that we choose to provide. It's a little different than that Christmas list about the new gun and the Xbox and so forth. There is no Santa Claus. And people want and deserve a certain level of services. They want our higher education institutions funded. They want tuition low. They want to make sure that we can build roads and bridges and deliver care to those people that are in our hospitals. They want to make sure that we can house inmates and take care of our foster children and keep our streets safe with the state police and respond with the National Guard the next time there's a flood. There is a cost associated with all of those things. And when we wake up on Christmas morning, there'll be a lot of things in our stockings, but the revenue to pay for that is not going to be in there. And we just have to live in the real world. And we have to decide that we are going to pay for the government that we want. And we've got to bring this into balance. The longer we wait, the greater the disservice we do to our state. The more we destabilize institutions that afford people opportunity for a better life. We can do better. We have to do better. I want to thank Cable and Barry Irwin particularly for taking part in the task force that studied budget and tax restructuring. And it's already made its recommendations. And as you might have guessed, there's not a whole lot new in those recommendations. Those are the things that have been talked about for years. And quite frankly, many of those things were things I asked the legislature to do last year. I'm sorry, not last year, earlier this year. We haven't turned that page. But we just have to get serious, and we have to find the courage to do what is hard. And the sooner we do that, the better off we're going to be. And so it should not surprise you that I and my administration are going to move forward with many of those recommendations that the task force just came out with for budget and tax reform. I'm asking for your support. I'm asking for you to contact your legislators in the House and in the Senate and ask them to come to Baton Rouge at the appropriate time with a mind towards working with us to fix the problem. It won't be easy, but we have to do it. Now, with respect to the floods, you know, we were hit with devastating, historic, unprecedented floods. In March and in August. And if you look at both of those floods together, 56 of our 64 parishes received major federal disaster declarations from the president. 56 out of 64. The probability of the rain event in March was pegged at, and it happening in any one year, was pegged at 1 in 100. For the flood in August, it was pegged at 1 in 1,000. Now, I hadn't been alive for 1,000 years. Maybe Richard Ushlock. Did you ever see anything? No, I suspect that going forward, the people who try to put the odds of these things, they're going to have to revise that, because it seems like the frequency of these really strange extreme weather incidents is happening more frequently, I should say. But those were historic floods. We had floods in March all across the state, every corner of the state. People flooded whose homes had never flooded before. But in August, in 48 hours, 7 trillion gallons of rain fell in South Louisiana. Now, that number is so big that if you're like me, you can't really appreciate it. What does that mean? That Mississippi River out there dumps 7 trillion gallons of water into the Gulf every 18 days. So it's like having that Mississippi River coming through a garden hose, sprinkling South Louisiana for 18 days, but doing it in 2. And so we had over 100,000 homes damaged, more than 100,000 vehicles lost, about 6,000 businesses damaged, and the worst numbers, we had 13 fellow Louisianans who were killed in that flood. And so we have to recover. And we pegged the damage from that storm at about $8.7 billion total, not including public infrastructure damage. And 80% of the homes that were just damaged did not have flood insurance, but they didn't live in a flood zone either. And so we have many people, and a lot of folks with low to moderate income, a lot of seniors, disabled people, people whose biggest investment ever in their life is their home, and right now it may not be worth as much as they owe on it, or it may cost more to repair it. And so they're struggling. Their lives are upside down. Do they go back home? How long can they stay there? Do they just let the bank have it? And so we need what has happened in our country for decades now, and that is to partner with the federal government to try to bring home as much recovery assistance as possible. And we have been working diligently on this, and we've made very good progress, and I'm very thankful for it. But we're not where we need to be yet. The first $438 million was appropriated by Congress in the continuing resolution literally just about 5 weeks after the rain stopped. That has never happened before, not just for Louisiana, in the history of our country. But because it was a continuing resolution that's not designed to fund government for a full year, it doesn't fully fund anything. We got $438 million out of a $2.6 billion request from the president. So we went back. Rather than doing a budget, they decided to do another continuing resolution, and we were in that, thank goodness, for additional dollars, but it's still not enough. $1.2 billion for community development block grant assistance, and that's the major assistance that we need for housing, but not just for housing, for businesses, for agriculture losses, for enhancements to our infrastructure. Because wouldn't it be great if we didn't always focus on raising our businesses and raising our houses and raising our governmental buildings, but we actually lowered the base flood elevation because we better controlled the flood waters through better detention and retention of water, through diversions and channels and just getting smart. But you can't do that with the amount of CDBG that we have received. And so we're going to be going back for help. The other thing is we can use community development block grant funding to pay for the match required for the FEMA assistance that we've already gotten. The match for the August flood is 25% from local government and from the state, and for the August flood is 10%. But we're going to be asking these political subdivisions to pay this match at a very time when the property tax notices that are going out right now are going to reflect the diminished value of those homes, and they're going to have not enough revenue to deliver the same services they delivered last year, much less pay for that match. So we need community development block grant funding for that, which has been done in the past. It's a permissible use of that money. And of course, we have many other needs as well. The long and short of it is, we're very grateful for the assistance that we've gotten. We're going to do everything we can with the Recovery Task Force that I have formed that is working on this issue to make sure we spend this money in a smart way, one that promotes the best recovery for the state of Louisiana, but we do need more help. And we're going to be going back for that. And by the way, it's not just a demonstrated need here in Louisiana if we're going to recover. We can show them that for the damage sustained to homes in New York and New Jersey by Superstorm Sandy, our total request is about 40% of what they got if you just look at the same number of homes and businesses that were damaged. So we're being entirely reasonable, and I have enjoyed working with the entire congressional delegation. I've enjoyed working with the Obama administration. I'm looking forward to working with the Trump administration and all the leaders in Congress, but our job is not done. We have to do better, and we will do better. Now, with respect to infrastructure in general, one of the things that I have focused on is making sure that we are spending our transportation trust fund on transportation issues, not on state police, for example, where we don't need to, and bringing home federal tax dollars. And this year, we were successful in a Fast Lane grant award from the Department of Transportation that's going to allow us to widen I-10 in both directions between Lafayette and the Atchafalaya Basin Bridge. And we're going to enter bidding phase 1 of that project next week, and then we will go to the next phase of that project in January of 2017. And because of that grant, we freed up money we were going to spend on that stretch of interstate, and now we are going to fix this problem at Washington Street exit on I-10 here in Baton Rouge with a new Terrace Street exit, so that we're not going to continually have a through lane of the interstate reduced, through traffic on the interstate reduced to one lane coming across that bridge. I think that's going to be very, very important. We also are going to make sure that we widen I-10 in both directions between Highland, right out here on the other side of Baton Rouge, and LA 73 in Ascension Parish through a design build process. And we're telling the folks, incorporate into your design an elevation of that section of interstate that was underwater, that had to be closed. Because if we're going to invest that kind of money, we don't want that to ever happen again. And I'll tell you, for the first time ever, every interstate in the state of Louisiana was closed at some point in 2016 because of flood water. I-10, I-12, I-55, I-49, I-20, all of them closed this year. So as we move forward and spend money on our infrastructure, we're going to try to make sure that we're building it in a more resilient fashion so that we don't have to continue to close these stretches of interstate. Because when that happens, motorists get stranded, sometimes for a long time. We had motorists stranded for 36 hours on I-12. Brought in Chinook helicopters from Mississippi because that's the one thing I think our National Guard doesn't have, and went out and picked them up. So we can do better. We're going to do better with that. But these success stories that I'm talking about on transportation infrastructure, they highlight what we can deliver for Louisiana when we have the opportunity. Now, opportunity, a lot of times, is dependent upon revenue. Now, you can do some certain things. You can do more private-public partnerships, and you can do tolls. But at the end of the day, you've got to have more revenue if you want to fix the transportation infrastructure problems that we have in Louisiana, related both to capacity and to maintenance of our current system. And I look forward to getting the recommendations for the Transportation Task Force that we've created. They have done a great job. They've been going all over the state of Louisiana to get input, and we're going to see what they come up with and take a good hard look and see if that's something that we can move forward, because we need to. We're not going to fix, just like the Santa Claus is not going to bring us the money to fix our budget, we're not going to get money in that fashion either to fix our transportation infrastructure. A couple of things that I want to share with you that I'm very, very proud of. One of the first things that I did, in fact, on the first full day in office, I expanded the Medicaid program in Louisiana. And as a result of that, today, 350,000 working poor in Louisiana have health insurance that did not have it before, most of them the first times in their lives. And at the same time, the state of Louisiana saved $184 million of our state general fund by simply bringing those dollars from Washington to pay for that health care. But it's not just about saving money. We are saving lives. Because of access to diagnostic evaluations, these people who didn't have that access before are receiving treatment such that we have 37 women in Louisiana who are being treated today for breast cancer they did not know they had. We have about the same number of people being treated for colon cancer that they did not know they had. We have about 700 people who have had polyps removed before they could cause cancer because they had a colonoscopy that they would not have had access to before. And by the way, having just turned 50, I'm looking forward to my first colonoscopy. And it's scheduled for a couple of weeks from now. But we are diagnosing hundreds and hundreds of people with diabetes long before they would have otherwise been diagnosed, so that their treatment options are better and they're going to have a higher quality of life, and ultimately we are going to save money, and the list goes on and on and on. And our health care providers in Louisiana are distributing less unreimbursed care, and their bottom line is better. So I understand repeal and replace, but I'm going to work with our congressional delegation and with the administration to make sure that whatever that replacement looks like, we don't pull the rug out from under those people and cause our providers problems and cause our state problems. Because this has been a tremendous success. And what I just told you about is after 5 months. How many lives are we going to save going forward if we don't pull the rug out from under those people? I also am excited about a chance we have next year to enact meaningful, comprehensive criminal justice reform You've probably heard me say this before. The people in Louisiana are not innately more sinister, more evil, or more criminal than people elsewhere. Why do we have the highest incarceration rate in the nation? Because we don't have the safest streets. We don't have the lowest recidivism. We can do better on all fronts: incarceration, recidivism, and public safety, by enacting criminal justice reform, not something that's unproven, but simply doing what other southern conservative states like Texas and South Carolina and Georgia have done. And I look forward to working with the task force led by Jimmy LeBlanc so that we can come up with that set of legislative initiatives to introduce in April. And this is a bipartisan thing. There are so many different interest groups that are coming together because, quite frankly, we can't afford to continue to spend $600 million a year incarcerating people. That's what we're doing today. It's third only to higher education, or to education and health care. $600 million. We can do better. And one of the linkages between the Medicaid expansion and the criminal justice reform is that we now have behavioral health as a component of coverage for Medicaid expansion, so that maybe we can do a better job of treating the ill as if they're ill and not as if they're criminals, and they don't have to go to prison, they don't have to stay in prison, and when they come out, we can get them the help that they need to stay out. And that's all available to us in a larger degree because of the Medicaid expansion as well. So we have a lot of work to do in Louisiana. We've done a lot of good things, and I'm very proud of where we are under the circumstances, but I cannot stand before you and pretend that all is good and that we've done all that we have to do. We have not. And most of the problems that we fixed this year were fixed on a temporary basis. The new revenue that we raised, about 3/4 of it will expire, and come July the 1st, 2018, it goes away. April is critically important. And my appeal to you today is to work with us in good faith. We can have honest disagreements, and in fact, those are healthy. But we have to have the discussions that lead to a compromise so that we can move forward. Now, I am excited about our state because we are going to get it done. There is no doubt in my mind we are going to get it done. Working with Taylor, who's sitting over here, working with John Alario, all the folks in the House and the Senate, we are going to fix our problems. So I want to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas. May 2017 be the best year ever for you and your family, and may it be a much better year for the state of Louisiana. And if I'm fortunate enough to receive an invitation to come back at this time next year, I have every intention of delivering a whole lot better news to you. God bless you. Thank you very much.
You know, there are a lot of organizations locally as well as statewide that are involved in economic development to try and bring in jobs and recruit industries to the state. But to be successful at that, you've also got to have a quality of life or those types of issues that make it attractive for a business or an individual to come and invest in Louisiana. So we work on those things that are maybe seen as less tangible, like education, workforce development, but that are still critical elements to bring in businesses in and investment into the state. So from our point of view, what we do is look at things to help improve the business climate, to make it a more conducive place for Louisiana, or for people to invest in Louisiana. And that has to do with education, it has to do with workforce, but it has to do with governmental ethics and credibility and those types of things as well.
Cable's a long-standing organization. What does Cable do differently to enable it to reach its goal?
Well, you know, I think there are a lot of organizations, I won't say a lot, there are several organizations that kind of get the good government moniker or whatever you want to call it like that, and I think all our organizations get confused from time to time. But I think we all have our niche, and Cable's niche is that we do research and we work to understand and develop public policies. Others do that too, but we also work really closely at the legislature to actually advocate for them. Some groups do the research, and some do not do the advocacy. So we do a little of the research and some of the advocacy. So my point is, we're down at the Capitol talking to legislators or talking to the policy people, you know, on a daily basis. It's not with us just about coming up with good ideas or coming up with good policies, but trying to work to get them implemented and enacted.
The board talks, well, it's a lot of issues, but I think, you know, a lot of it's just pure administration of the board and running an effective organization. But we talk about budget. But the last few years, the budget situation for the state has taken dominance over almost everything we talk about because it affects education and some of the other bigger topics. So Barry Irwin, who is our president, has been on the task force the governor just referenced for the tax structure or budget structure. And so that's been dominant, but also education reform has been probably the one of the biggest things that Cable has worked on the last few years.
We have deep structural problems with respect to our tax system. The revenue that it produces is fluctuates too greatly. It is sometimes not fair. We have too many tax breaks in favor of special interests that are not producing a return on investment. And we just have to do better, but we've got to create a long-term tax structure that is fair, that is predictable, and that is sufficient. And we don't have that today. And the people are not being well served by it, as evidenced by cuts to very popular programs, such as the TOPS program that we're having to deal with this year. It was unnecessary to have that problem. Ultimately, the legislature last year chose not to do some of the things I asked them to do, and this is what resulted. But we have to move forward together and I think do a better job of serving the people of Louisiana.
You can log on to our website and look up Council for a Better Louisiana. We have a wonderful new brochure we just put out today, December 8th, that provides all that information. Or simply look us up and call us at the Cable office, which is located downtown in Baton Rouge, and speak either with the President, Barry Irwin, or feel free to contact me, Trent Oob, here in Baton Rouge, and glad to get you hooked up with Cable.
Best place to get information about Cable is probably our website, www.cable, C-A-B-L, no E on it, .org.